And this is an octopus. A beautiful, yet very weird creature. And I would like to make one in Blender and show you how you can do the same. So, before we start modeling, maybe take a breath, collect your mind, look at some octopus footage to get it into the octopus mode, and then we can start by opening Blender. After breathing a new Blender file, select everything and press X to delete it. Now we can Shift A and make a circle. In the properties, change the amount of vertices to 8, and then we can switch into edit mode. Here we can start editing, modeling and extruding with E. And we can press Z to keep the axis. When you get something like this, S to scale it out, extrude again and get a suction cup shape. Use spacebar to open a search or F3 and find the grid fill. You can play around with these settings here if it's the wrong way around. With Ctrl R you can add a loop cut, and with Ctrl B you can add a bevel. And I begin by modeling a suction cup because I thought it'd be a massive pain to retopologize a sculpted tentacle. And I'm gonna show you how this will work out, but first we jump into object mode, and in this tab we're gonna create a mirror modifier. Press Y and clipping. Let's press 1 so we can select this vertex here and move to top view. With E I extrude it, I press escape and G X 1 to move it into this direction and G Y -1 to move it into this place. Because of our modifier, if we extrude we get this result, and you can press Y and X on your keyboard to lock it into the axis. So you get something like this. Okay, pressing 2 we can select these two edges here, and with F we can make faces. So let's make two faces. Move object mode, with Ctrl A we can apply this modifier, move back into edit mode, select everything and search for merge by distance. Because of our mirror modifier we have overlapping geometry, and this way we can clean it up again. And now we can maybe select this edge right here, adjust the look a little bit, move like this, okay, that's good. Here I save. And in object mode, add another mirror modifier. Jump to edit mode, move it to the side and activate clipping. Because of our clipping we can connect these two instances by extruding this edge right here. Ching. Let us model a basic intersection of the arm. So we can select this edge right here, and in this view just move it and extrude it and get a crude shape done. And maybe adjust it if you're not happy. And I use Shift Y while moving, so I can move it into 2 dimensions. Okay, looks good for the moment. And with Control click you can select this edge right here. We're gonna need to extrude it, and because once we're happy with this shape we are going to add an array modifier in object mode. Time for some research. Still, octopuses generally have a double row of suckers, biceral, running down each arm from their mouth. The giant Pacific octopus is most impressive with around 280 suckers per arm! That's a lot. But we're gonna use this information to find out how many arrays we need. So in here let me type 120, so we have 230 suckers, more or less. And now this changed to 0 and on Y to 1, and we have almost an arm. Next step, press Shift A and we are gonna add an empty into the scene. So select empty plane axis, and click on the model, and in the array modifier, activate object offset, and we can choose our empty now. And we can move to the side view. In the outliner, select our empty, and once we start scaling it, this will happen. So you may see where we're going now with this technique. And just play around until you're happy with the proportions. Shift B you can use to zoom right here, and you see that we have a gap in between these pieces, which is a problem. So we can jump into edit mode and maybe start scaling this edge right here so it aligns a little bit better. It doesn't have to be perfect because in our settings here we can activate the merge, and it automatically will connect these edges. And we can change the distance it does that, but be careful, because if we move on this side and we add too big of a value, it may be that our geometry starts merging that we don't want, something like this. So for me, a value of 0.06 was fine. Let's move back. Okay, and now we can play around with this edge a little bit to get a proper result. Maybe also use this edge here. Just make it so that you're very happy with what you're doing. Okay, I think this looks good for the moment. And now let me add a subdivision modifier just to see how it will look. Here I just use some proportional editing to adjust the look of the tentacle. So I resize the cups a little bit and also resize the shape of the tentacle until I get a result that I like. It's good to take a break from time to time so you can have a fresh mind again, and when I did that I realized that the cups really go all the way to the end of the tentacle. So let me account for that by making some changes. First I'm gonna resize the empty. So overall the arm will get a little bit shorter. And then also I'm gonna add a few more arrays, like 4. I think that's good. Soon I'll be applying some modifiers, and sometime I like to make a duplicate of the model I'm working on. So in case I mess up, I have a point of reference I can start from again. So let me hide all of these and Shift D to, let's hide this first, Shift D to make a duplicate, and with M create a new collection, and I just call it spare parts. I then hide this collection and rename the original mesh, and from now on it shall be called Tentacle Mesh. And one last thing before I apply anything is to jump into edit mode, and I select following vertices and check that you really only select these vertices. And I'm gonna create a vertex group. This will help us in the future. So I click here, make a new group, call it cups, and I assign these vertices. Control A in object mode to apply the mirror and the array modifier. As you can see, we have all the cups selected. They're all in one vertex group. And now I unhide the subdivision surface. Also, I click this button here. I just like the way that looks. Let's change the origin of this model. So select this edge right here. With Shift S, you can snap the cursor to the selected vertices. Go into object mode, search for origin to geometry. Press Shift C to reset the 3D cursor, Shift S and selection to cursor. And now we have it at a good location and the origin is over there. If you were to Google octopus mouth, you will find images like this. And it's disturbing, but you can see that the tentacles get smaller on the opposite end. And since I plan to make a whole octopus one day, I will also build this into the tentacle. So we're gonna find a way to do this. And let me just make a loop cut somewhere around Let's see again. It's even worse. Somewhere around here. That's good. And by pressing V on your keyboard, we can cut this part away. L to select it. And changing our pivot point by pressing period on the keyboard, we can rotate this duplication 180 degrees on the Z axis. Now, let's select everything together. And then we press merge by distance again. And also select this edge loop right here. And get rid of it. I use auto merge vertices, but you can also just press X and dissolve the edge. And now we can start proportionally editing by selecting this edge and just make it smaller. And don't forget to change your pivot point again. And just suck it into this direction. And here I play around with different proportional editing types. I found out that linear gives a okay result. And now you see why we use arrays to create this stuff, because otherwise it gets really distorted. But I think like on this end it won't be too important, since depending on your use the player will almost never see it. And I think it's okay like this. Off to the other end. Okay, let's create a nice finish. So select the edge and basically we're gonna just scale it down, also using proportional editing, and move it in a little bit. In here, extruded this last edge. And finally, I'm gonna search for the grid fill and play around with the settings here until I find a result that looks good. Something like this. And very nice finish. Checking the edge flow. Back at it, I realized that while creating it, it got a little bit off center. So let's just rotate it a little bit. Like this. And right now my laptop was out of energy, but all I did was Ctrl A to apply the rotation. And here we are again. Looking at it again, I may want to adjust the size of the cups. And now I can use the vertex group we created before. So over here, select all the cups. Except here in the front, you might want to deselect some, because otherwise when we scale it, we can get some crappy geometry. So deselect these ones. Let's jump back here, and then by pressing period, we can change the pivot location to individual origins, and now we can scale this stuff in synchronicity. Also, I thought, okay, maybe let's do the following. Let's click on here, and then we can select more, and with Shift R we can repeat this action. After this, we want to deselect the vertex groups and get over here again, and with numpad minus you can do the same, or select less, and this way we can select just the rings. Also I press 3, so there's nothing in between selected, and now we can edit these all at once. If you are very much into detail and also want to scale these at the front, you can select the vertex group again, press Ctrl I and H to hide everything else, and now you can select just these and create a new vertex group. You can rename this group and assign these vertex, and then you can also scale these at the front. Just be careful, because when you zoom in here, this is what happened last time to me. You don't want to screw up your geometry, so take care and you'll be fine. And basically this is it. If you want to make the whole octopus with the next tutorial, the tentacle is basically done right now. But if you want to have a standalone tentacle with a rig and some other stuff, we'll be getting to that in a moment. Hey, so you want a standalone tentacle. In this case, you can delete the subdivision surface modifier and create a multi-resolution and click on subdivide twice. And I'm soon gonna use sculpting, but before I do this, I will make another copy of this and move it to the spare parts just in case. Yeah, just in case. Okay, now I'm gonna tap into sculpt mode because as it is, for my taste, it looks too much like a Lego. So we are gonna add a little imperfection because nothing in nature is perfect. And we are going to do this by using the grab tool and making a texture for it. Here I use the Musgrave texture and scale it up and play with the size a little bit. And then you can start wiggling these cups around, but not too much so it doesn't get too much out of alignment when we're gonna rig it afterwards. And while this is happening magically in the background, I want to share something with you that I've learned along my way. When I started doing this stuff, I always wanted it to be impossibly perfect. And I never got my head around how to get stuff done because it takes so much time and you can get lost in this infinite search for perfection. And then one day I realized that for me, like, perfection isn't a result anymore. I rather like to use it as an ingredient, like say salt or pepper on a dish. So I use it to spice my stuff up, but not expect it to be something that it can't. And once you're happy, you can apply the base in the modifier. And you can see now also the low-res model will have the according geometry. In here, I'm gonna realign the model one last time, and my tablet went absolutely berserk in this capturing. I don't know. Hope it doesn't annoy you, but I'm moving the object so the origin is back at this point, more or less, and press Shift A and apply all transforms. Now we can press Shift A again and make a skeleton. Scale it up a little bit so we can see it. Let me rename that and call it Tentacle Mesh. Skeleton, sorry. In edit mode, rotate it 90 degrees. And also over here, you can make it so it's in the front and wireframe, so we can see right through it. And then we're gonna scale it up all the way to the end of the tentacle. Then you can click it, and in the search, we search for subdivide. And here I'm using 40 cuts to get a smooth result. Always, before combining a mesh with a skeleton, check if both transforms are applied, because otherwise you can have problems. But once you're ready, select the mesh, select the skeleton, Ctrl P and select with automatic weights. Now off to the pose mode and use individual origins, and we can bend the tentacle just like that. Swapping over to Shading tab with the model selected, we can click this nice button here to create a new material and rename it. And since we need a second one, here make a new slot and also a new material, and this will be for the cups. Swapping the material, we can go into the Vertex paint mode. And in here, change the shading. Under paint, add some dirty vertex color. And in here, change the iterations to 2, maybe. And let's use this information for our material. So we can click here, and under color attributes, rename this attribute to dirt. And with Shift A, we can find this node here, change the group, Right away, Shift A again, and finding the mix color node, we can create an interesting material. Link these lines like this, and you will be ready to create your own material. Shift C to copy these nodes and move them over to the cups material. And we won't see any change here because we haven't assigned the material yet. So let's just do this in a moment. By moving into edit mode, we can select our vertex group again. Over here, hello. And on the material tab, assign these to the succas material. This is a very simple material done. And this is it for the moment. I really hope you enjoyed and see you next time.